hitting on topics that are real, relevant, and real. Discussing relationships, money, sex, men, women. So sit back, listen up, and let's have some real day-to-day conversation because
this is Real Talk at the Sea.
Real Talk.
What's up, everybody out there in podcast land? This is your girl, Pastor Michelle Ellison, and this is Real Talk at the Z. Coming at you with real, relevant, and reaching topics. I told you at the beginning, by the end of this year, your life will be better. All because of topics that we have here at Real Talk at the Z. Listen, I'm super excited on tonight. I have 3 dynamic guests with me, and we're just going to go through real quick and introduce ourselves and what you do, and then we'll dive into our conversation. And we'll start right here.
All right. My name is Marcus Hill. A lot of y'all know me as Coach Hill from Rockwell Middle. I'm a special ed teacher, 7th grade.
Cool. Welcome.
Well, I'm Bishop Jay. I am the senior pastor here at Zion Christian Ministries. Also, I'm an educator at Laverne High School.
I'm Deidre Barnes. I am an assistant principal at Shelbyville Central High.
Welcome. We are so excited. I came up with this topic, bridging the gap for the future. And all of you all are in the field of being an educator, coach, life coach, prophetess. So we all have the opportunity to speak into somebody's life. Mm-hmm. And from the last podcast, as I was sharing earlier, we have young people who are out here just suffering. They don't have the necessary tools that they need to become, productive adults. So I wanted to start off and talk about the first part of this podcast when we used to have a village. You had, the neighbor next door, when they saw you doing something wrong, they would get you. And then when you got home, your parents got you. And so with that, as an educator, how do you see that there's no due diligence on the parents' part when it comes to your relationship and their children?
Man, that's a good question.
Great question. Yeah.
Whomever want to dive in.
This is it's a bittersweet situation when you talk about the parents and the dynamic of them versus the school, because I think that that's something that has changed over the years. I think back to like the years where I was in school. My mama would hem me up if I was acting a fool.
Come on.
That part.
And she gave, the teachers permission. She would always say, you have permission to bop her upside her head if she talks back.
Yeah.
But I think it's bittersweet because you look at, the parents are actually stepping up to the plate and, taking that autonomy as parents and saying, this is my child, I'm going to raise them, to the best of my ability. But then on the flip side of that, then it becomes kind of a challenge to the schools where we're like, hey, I see these challenges that your child may be facing. And then it becomes like this battle, So the village, I would say the village concept is there, but it looks different.
That's good.
The village seems divided. So you have like a village within a village. You have the school village, but then you have the home village.
Yeah.
So just, I think that's the dynamic of it from my perspective right now.
That was good.
I think it's the understanding that, parents and teachers and educators, we all have a significant role to play. You know what I'm saying? Like parents, you send your kids off for at least 8 hours a day to teachers.
Right.
So in some sense, whether we want to agree with it or not, it's a collective effort.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're spending, in most cases, especially if the parent has multiple jobs and they come home and go to work after work,
right,
they're spending more time with the teacher than they are you. So I think it's one of those understandings, like we have to work together for the success of the student.
I was about to say something about that. I think the lack of communication has dropped amongst the kids, the parent, the teachers. I think the lack of communication. You have some parents listen to everything that the kids say. You have some parents that don't want to hear anything the teacher has to say.
Right.
I just think that whether good or bad, I think everybody should be on the same page.
Yeah.
And I think the lack of communication is poor these days.
So with you talking about the lack of communication, how do you feel, being a parent yourself, how would you feel that we could bridge that gap?
I'll say consistency and communication often. Don't call me when it's donation drive.
Come on.
Or when my kid is doing bad.
Right,
Call me when he's
right.
doing good as well. And I think a lot of times to parents, when teachers call, like, what did Johnny do now?
Yeah.
No, I'll just let you know he had a great week.
Yeah.
Right.
And you got to be consistent with that. And I think, and I hate to say it, a lot of times when you have parents that are kind of like, they kind of
Go ahead and say it. Go ahead and say it.
rough around the edges. You have some teachers be like, I'm not dealing with that headache.
Yeah.
Got you.
But often you need to deal with that parent, because if not, your school year might be rough.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You better nip that in the bud early
Yeah.
and have open communication with it. So now y'all have a good relationship.
Exactly.
But if you constantly like, I don't want to deal with it, you're gonna have to deal with this parent.
Yeah.
So you
Eventually.
so you might as well get it out the way from early and have that open communication, and hopefully y'all have a better relationship.
That's good.
And that was actually my next point, when you're saying the village is within the village, and there's been a disband of communication, because there are those rough around the edges parents who feel like nobody's going to listen to me anyway, because when they grew up, no one were listening to them.
Yeah.
And then their parents were not there. So it's kind of like a generational issue that we're seeing as well. So when you think about the lack of communication and how students lash out, as an educator, how do you bring that communication into them and make it a safe place for them to speak with you?
I would say from my experiences, and there's one example that's coming to mind. I remember last year he called me, he's like, Ms. Barnes, because he was my dean last year. Ms. Barnes, we have a student who's not giving up their cell phone. I will exactly what I'm talking about. And I sat up there in what we call, technically ISS, but I sat up there for probably 15 minutes and I was hot.
Wow.
Because I'm like, I got stuff to do. But at the end of the day, I sat there and I spoke with the young lady and I was calm. I'm like, we got a choice to make. Like, either we can do this or we can do that. At the end of the day, I'm still going to win. He's still going to win. Because at the end of the day, you got a choice. Either you can put this phone up or I'm going to suspend you. Like, that's, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
And you're already suspended because you're in
you
school.
already in ISS. Like, what else is there to do? But, like my tone, I always tell people, my tone.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to be very careful about my tone.
Yes.
Sometimes I can come off very sharp. And so, speaking with the young lady and everything, and then, calling her mother just to let her know, hey, here's the situation. But students respect teachers and people in general who they feel listen to them.
Yes.
Take the time to actually hear them out. Well, I felt disrespected. Well, why did you feel disrespected? Now, granted, we grew up in that generation where I don't have
I
the
agree.
time.
I agree.
Because I said so.
Right.
Right,
but,
right.
but at the end of the day, when you build those relationships and, you're contacting the parents, not just for the bad things, but like, hey, this student also had a good day. You build, you mend. That's the word I'm looking for. You
yes.
mend
That's good.
that broken trust,
Yeah.
that broken communication where they're like, man, they really care about my child. So then when you see that child in the hallway, they may be cussing out one teacher, but I know you ain't gonna cuss me out.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's so I think it's when you're patient with it, that's the fruit of the spirit. That's so hard. But when you're
Yes.
patient with them, like it's not going to do you wrong in the end. It's going to take
That's
time to develop that with the student. But when they see that you're diligent about that,
Yes.
they're going to trust you.
That's good.
You know what? I remember that day because I was like, I don't see how she does it. Because I was about ready to snap.
And I was boiling. I was so mad.
Because I come from that, I'm a coach too. So it's like, hey, you do this. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and go back and forth with you.
Right, right.
And she was so patient, and I don't know how she did it. But I think to that point, I think one of the things parents can understand, and you're a parent, but you're also a teacher. So I think what parents have to understand is that like the teacher has multiple kids
Exactly.
and multiple personalities, and I think sometimes parents think they're only teaching your
child.
Your child.
Yeah.
Your child is the only one in the classroom.
Yep.
And I think what perspective does is it helps you understand, okay, that teacher is managing multiple personalities on any given day.
Right.
And so it's one of those things where teachers have these conversations, whether we're in-service trainings or we're in PLCs talking to other teachers, we're talking about how to deal with kids and how to de-escalate. So if the teachers are having these conversations, the
Yes.
teachers are sharing ideas, and the teachers, I think parents would do due diligence to speak with other parents and to speak with teachers on how they too can share ideas and concepts and continue to lay standards when the kid comes home. One of the problems I'm seeing, last summer I tried to launch an initiative called From the Dining Room to the Classroom.
Yes.
Is there some inconsistencies between what's happening at home and what's happening in the classroom? See, when you come to school, there's rules.
Yep.
Yes.
And you may not have rules at home. I hear it all the time. Man, I don't have to get off my phone at the house. Well, you're at school.
Right.
Yeah.
You're going to get off that phone here.
That's it.
So parents have to, I think you could help us out is have some rules at home
rules, yes.
that say at this time, put that cell phone right here.
Yeah.
See, it's a problem when kids have free reign at home and then they come into structure every day.
Yep.
Now you're going to be in ISS, you're going to be suspended because you don't know how to follow rules.
Yeah.
You can even see that when you have kids in two different households.
Yes.
Some certain kids, I'm like, I can tell when you stay with your mom or dad. You coming in Monday, you sleeping in class, you got attitude. You can tell. You be like, oh, you must stay with so and so.
Right, right.
You can tell from the beginning. I'm like, oh.
You've been wilding all weekend.
Because if you was over here,
Yeah.
that would not happen.
Yeah.
Yes. And so when you think about having that structure and you have the ability for 8 hours a day to offer that structure, how do you get them to understand, listen, you're going to need this when you leave mama's house, when you leave this high school, if you decide to go to college, like really when I left high school, even though I was still living with my parents, I did not fully capture what structure was. And I came from a military. My dad was straight military. So it was get up, make your bed, do this before you do anything else. But I felt like I was grown. I done graduated from high school, but I'm still living at home. But I'm grown. And my dad was like, okay, get your job. And this is the bill that you're responsible for. And I'm like, hold on, wait a minute, sport.
Game changer.
That ain't my job. I'm not supposed to be paying bills.
Yeah.
I'm your child. So there lies in a valuable lesson my dad had to teach me. You want to be grown, then there's structure to this. There's structure to life. So how do you, like as a coach, how do you coach your track team to understand without structure, you're not going to make it to the next level?
Well, one thing that I have is experience. So I'm not coaching from a thing where I research. I'm coaching from I've been there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like most of them want to go and get scholarships. I don't look like it. I'm a D1 athlete. I signed a scholarship. So, I can tell, but that sounds maybe arrogant, but these kids need to hear that.
Right.
Like, okay, he did that.
Yes.
Okay, so now I can speak from a very real place. If you want to be there, if you want to get there, if you want to, this is what you're going to have to do. And I always say this, lessons in sports is just lessons in life.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you to put the toes on the line because there's going to come a time where details matter in life.
Exactly.
Good.
And so that's what I'm trying to really instill in these kids. But what I appreciate about, Coach and Dr. Barnes is I watch those girls in the hallways, and every time Dr. Barnes walked in, they were always, man, her hair, man, she doing it, or she's sharp, or she got on a nice pair of boots. And most of these kids are chasing the bag.
Yes.
Yep.
And so when they see real life examples of educators and people who they can touch and talk to, who's got the bag,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Now they're like, okay, now my picture of success is not just a rap video.
That's good.
Right.
It's not just a drug dealer. It's not just, I can be that and be successful.
That's
Right.
good.
Like I don't have to go and sit under Deion Sanders. I got Coach Johnson right here.
Period.
That's done it hands down.
Yeah.
And that's my thing. If I was a player and my coach played D1 ball, I'm like, he got the golden ticket. Like what he say is golden to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
He's been there and done that.
Exactly. Exactly. And you have a lot of this day and time technology. We were talking about it earlier. Technology is a game changer in this generation. When we were coming up, we were doing good to have a color TV. If you had a TV at all, then you had to share it. This person had an hour to watch or that type of thing. And so now with everything being at exposure, how do you, when it comes to all of these laws that are coming into life, how do you balance? If you have a child that's in your room that identifies differently, how do you balance that and then teach the other students how to balance that as well?
Oh, now you getting into it.
That's a real question.
Because this is our future.
Yeah, it is.
Because
It is.
I've received some emails, that the person puts their name and clearly, Dawn Johnson, I know that's a female, but Dawn Johnson has she, her outside. And I've noticed a lot of business emails that are coming through, they're putting their pronouns there now. So it's like, how do you, as an educator, how do you balance that?
And Don, if you're watching, we love you with the love of Christ.
That's just a name that I
Oh,
made
okay,
up.
okay, all right.
I will say, this is where my faith kicks in. Because I truly believe, God has strategically placed educators in schools for
Yes.
a region, for a reason, and he placed them in that region.
Come on.
So I speak to the child, I
Yes.
speak to the teacher in the identity that God designed them in.
Come on.
You see what I'm
Yes,
saying?
yes.
So take for example, I had a student one time. We had to do a lap in the hall because they were just fidgety. I'm like, do you want to walk around? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go. So we start talking about Mountain Dew and all this random stuff, and then they start opening up about their preferences and whatnot. And I'm just speaking to the child.
Yes.
And the identity that God called them to be, as in, okay, so you're good at math. You see, I'm not even acknowledging the other.
Gotcha.
So you're good at
Yes.
math. Okay, man, like, do you want to do engineering eventually? And then we're talking like, I'm not even gonna shine a spotlight on that to even allow the world to grasp this child's identity like it wants to.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm speaking in the direction
Right.
that I see that God's gonna take you. So that's one thing that it's hard in education. I'm not
Yeah.
even gonna lie.
Yeah.
It is. It's tough.
Because then you've got laws that are in place, and then you've got regulations, and then you got this person's opinion. So I know that I'm in a safety net when I speak to the identity that God
Yeah.
designed for that
That's
child.
good.
You
That's
see what I'm saying? Like, that protects me, but it also protects them. And now I know how to pray for you.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I see that you're good at this. Let's talk about this. Oh, I see that you're struggling with your anxiety. I see that you're struggling in depression. Let's talk about some strategies and ways that we can get that up off of
Yeah.
us. You see what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
a lot of those are things that just weigh them down. And I don't mean to steer this in another direction, but
No, you're good. You're good
It's-
because somebody needs this.
Yeah,
It's the dawning of a new future. So
yeah, I think in this generation, identity is something that's heavily attacked, and it's a strategy from the enemy, because if you don't know who you are, then you're not going to be able to accomplish the things that God has set out for you.
Yeah.
So that's why I just speak in that direction of, here's where you are currently. Your spirit just has not, or your man has not caught up where your spirit is yet.
Yeah.
And you're a child, so I don't expect you to be caught up just
Right.
yet, but you need
Right.
that guidance, and I'm
Yeah.
going to be that person for you.
That's good.
That's the prophetic side coming
Come
out,
on,
where
Amy.
I'm like, we
Come on.
got to be in the schools. We got to
got it.
pray for the kids,
Yeah.
you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's
Exactly.
good.
So
good.
yeah, that's Jesus. That's
Yeah.
all I can
That's a
say.
tough one.
It is. It is.
That's a tough one.
Nah, I mean, for me, I just try to, even like here at the church, I think my aim is always showing everyone that they have value,
Yes.
right? And respecting the individual first, and letting God fix opportunities
That's good.
to speak to whatever that identity crisis may be.
Yes.
And 9 times out of 10, people see the kids see something in you that feels like a safe space,
Yes.
right? And sometimes they'll open up to you, they'll come to you and say A, B, or C, and that is your moment
Gotcha.
to move in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Being what I do outside of like with Man Maker Academy, I see a guys struggle with their identity all the time. Well, they come to Man Maker and they know good and well what I'm going to teach. But they came because they feel like it's a safe space, because I didn't make them feel less than
Right.
just because they have a struggle.
Right.
That's good.
They feel value. And so your struggle, that next man's struggle, might be something else.
Right.
Your identity might be yours. They may struggle with, like you said, depression, or they may struggle with, childhood trauma, whatever the case may be.
Right.
But I'm not going to look down on a man because that's his struggle, or a young lady because that's their struggle. And so I think what guides me, because we have a couple of them, that I deal with on a daily basis,
Right.
but I don't treat them any different.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's good.
The respect.
Yep.
Yeah.
You said value and respect. I like that. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that being said, because educators are made up of multiple cultures.
Correct.
And a lot of times culturally, we are deemed something that we're really not until you take the time to understand where this student is coming from or why this student is acting the way they act. So as an educator, how do you have that hard conversation with another educator of a different culture to help them understand a student's plight?
Well, like I tell some educators, if you want the kids to listen to you, you got to listen as well. If you're not willing to listen, how can you show growth?
Yes.
You can't be closed-minded and being stubborn. Like, you got to listen as well,
That's
including
good.
myself.
Yes.
So the thing is, to understand certain things and certain people, you got to be willing to listen. If you're not willing to listen, you're not willing to grow, or we're just stuck in your ways.
Yes.
So it's just one of those things where you got to be willing to listen and learn and grow from your mistakes,
That's
or just
good.
grow in general.
That's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Listen and learn. you have
Right.
you
Listen
have to
and
be
learn.
You want the kids.
teachable. I'm in a different dynamic. I'm used to being around people who look like me, and I'm at a
Yes.
school where I'm like, well, hello, hi everyone. And so there are some hard conversations that I've had to have already with some of the educators in the building. No, you cannot reference nappy as a good term. That's not acceptable.
Yes.
And so I'm laughing because I never thought that I'd experienced this in my life. But
Right.
it's one of those things where I always tell people, you have to separate the person from their problem. And their problem is not necessarily something that they're intentionally doing. Sometimes they can do something that they're not even aware of. So cultural competency is something that I try to instill in my teachers, and they know when I'm disappointed. I mean, you can't just be acting all, as the old folk would say, willy-nilly, just all over the place, saying this and that, because now you have somebody of a different culture who's in your building who's also going to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
You see, so I think just being teachable, and also knowing that allowing adults as well as children, like Coach Johnson said, the safe place, but also providing that grace as well. Because sometimes they are going to say something out of ignorance.
Yes.
And it's not that, you're stupid. It's just you really didn't know what to do in this situation, and you thought that what you did was the best, but it really wasn't the wisest. So let me coach you through the situation.
Yeah.
That's
and then
good.
let's not do it again.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
Put emphasis on not do it again.
Not do it.
Not do it again. Let's learn from this one.
Learn from your mistakes.
Learn.
Let's learn.
Listen and learn. Did you have something to add, add to that,
you
Bishop?
know, Pastor Grant Gaines and I, for the past 3 years, have been championing this idea of conversation, right? Like, how do we have conversations about our differences in a cool way?
Yes.
To where we're not, you know, throwing blows at the end of this conversation. And our country has just gone through this up and down seesaw type effect about race. And I think what happens is, if we don't know how to have these conversations, we never get to solutions.
Yes.
And so what I enjoyed about learning what you said is so vitally, a lot of them and a lot of us
Yes.
do things out of ignorance that we don't even know is offensive. So I didn't even know that I couldn't say that. I mean, I hear people say it all the time. So I didn't think it was a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't say it.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? I mean,
And then here's why.
and here's why. You can't say that.
Right.
I mean, and so like I think it's just getting to the point to where we understand, or asking before we become angry. Okay, did they mean to say that? Or going to them and say, hey, I heard you say this. Are you aware
Yes.
that you can't say that? You know, and I think 9 times out of 10, in my experience, a lot of people aren't aware that that is highly offensive.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if you're black or white.
Right.
I mean, I've found out there's some things in the school that I teach at. There's a large Hispanic population. So I've been educated on a lot of things that is offensive to the Hispanic, you know, culture that I wasn't aware of. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know you couldn't say that. Well, I didn't know you couldn't, you know. So it's learning on all angles, right?
Yes.
And so it's not just a black-white thing. It's now as our country gets more diverse,
Yes.
our schools get more diverse, we all have to learn.
That's good.
You know?
Exactly.
So
That's good. Listen and learn. Listen and learn.
Sounds good.
If you don't like the correction, just pick up a book.
Right.
You can read it in a book.
Pick up a book. It's there. Google it. Well, listen, it has been my honor and my pleasure to be at the table with you all to have this conversation. And the whole purpose and goal behind this is we're praying and hoping that parents, educators, as well as students will, click that button. Listen, we need you to click the button, listen, like, and share the Real Talk at the Z podcast and get this information out, because we are on the dawning of a new future. We have to learn how to bridge the gap.
Yes.
As I was sharing earlier, I have a 4-year-old nephew and a 3-year-old niece, and I haven't been in the school system in a minute.
It's different. It's a little different.
Yeah.
it's a little bit different.
And yeah, it's a whole lot different based upon some of the things that I'm hearing from teachers, in the salon, and, just kind of watching and reading different stories that come across the news. It's like, oh my God,
Yeah. Yeah.
can I put myself in position to homeschool? But, even in that, there's different dynamics with that. But we want our community to know that there are educators within Rutherford County, within Bedford County, Murfreesboro City, wherever you are, you have educators who care. They really do care about the future of your children. So bridge the gap with that, parents. Come to parent-teacher conferences.
Yes.
Check on your child's grades. See how their mentality is going on at the school. Stop fussing, hollering, and cussing
Speak.
at your children, because they are the future. And the future is now. Yeah, and their teachers. Yeah, by all means. Stop trying to fight the ones that's trying to get you to your future. Oh my
I'm on
goodness.
y'all side.
Yeah, we on your side. Trying to help them get out your house.
You didn't even want them in your house. That's why you dropped them off to us.
At the school.
did.
You met them 2 years ago.
And put them in ESP. Put them in ESP. But listen, this is your girl, Pastor Michelle Ellison. Again, it has been my honor and pleasure to be in such a room with dynamic life changers, game changers that are in the education system. Listen, this has been Real Talk at the Z. We'll see you in another episode as we go higher in making your life better by the end of the year. That's why it's called Real Talk at Z.